Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. As you heard from the news, Joey Porter and other Steelers have come in the defense of former coach Mike Tomlin, defending him against Ben Roethlisberger's comments, and of course Harrison as well have made comments about Mike Tomlin and how and just talking badly on his name despite his excellent record that he's had with the Steelers. Not a lot of postseason success, but as far as coaching goes, he's one of the elite coaches that I don't think he ever had a losing season. Like a lot of people get on him because of the postseason stuff, but he has created a lot of opportunities and put players in position to win. But unfortunately, a lot of these players have created their own downfall as far as the play goes and things like that. Only thing a coach can do is put you in an opportunity to make those plays or to be successful. It's up to you to actually act upon it. And some of these players now are not taking accountability for their own actions, especially specifically Big Ben. I think with Harrison on the other end, he was, unfortunately, it just didn't work out at the end. He ended up going to the Patriots and being shuffled around a little bit. But I don't think he caused his own demise, but definitely Big Ben did. So Joey Porter Sr. came out and stated that Big Ben was a terrible person and a terrible teammate, which we've heard rumblings about this before on various shows, mostly on FS1 Undisputed with Skip and Shannon. Shannon Sharp talked about this a lot, about the things he heard about Big Ben, not just on the field, but off the field, about the motorcycle accident, the parties that he used to attend, and the things that he was accused of in the past off the field. And then on the field, the numerous incidences he had, um, calling players out, blaming players, deflecting, similar to what Aaron Rodgers does. He's also they accused him of fumbling on purpose, and there was a video of Big Ben looking like he tried to hand the football off to the running back and then the football just hits the ground and he just looks at it basically. So there's a lot of accusations as far as Big Ben being a bad leader and a bad teammate. And as a quarterback, that's the worst thing you can be as a bad leader because the quarterback is seen as the CEO or the leader of the offense and the whole team. But Big Ben never seemed to be that. And I think that was more of the downfall of the Steelers, more so than even, just the coaching mishaps that they might have had. It was the leadership, the lack of leadership. When all the players were taking knees when the Kaepernick era. They had a lot of dissension then because they talked about how half the locker room wanted to take knees, and then the other half just wanted to stay in the locker room, and it was a big mess. And it's because of the leadership. As the quarterback should have made a plan that everyone should have followed. But of course, when you have uh, corrupt leadership at the top, it's going to trickle down to the bottom. And that's definitely what happened in the Steelers' case. So it's no different from what Big Ben has been. So Joey Porter Sr., what he reported is just what we already knew. Um, and there's been players like Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown who talked about the lack of leadership from Ben and how bad of a person and teammate he was. But of course, people just wrote them off as they're crazy, they're malcontents. Those guys are just locker room killers, and they didn't really hold any credence or hold Big Ben accountable for these accusations at the time because they came from players that they were easily written off. But Joey Porter Sr. is more of a leader, and he's more of a coach now, and he's considered still a royalty. He has a great name in Pittsburgh, so now people are starting to take credence to it because if somebody like him said this, or if somebody like Hans Ward or um, probably the Pouncey brothers, probably which won't say that because they were taking up for him when a lot of people were talking bad about Ben or telling the truth about Ben, so to speak. Now, but if any of those type of people do it, but Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell are pretty much Hall of Fame players. I know the end of their careers didn't go the way they wanted them to, and it got kind of wonky at the end. But the stats they put up and the trends that they set for especially smaller players, in Antonio Brown's case, but his skill set was his skill set. What he can do to get open, to get the football, His productivity was, second to none in his era, pretty much. He was one of the few players that was getting 100 catches every year. He kind of set that trend for the pass catchers of being able to get 100 plus catches every year consistently, and getting over 1,200 yards consistently and those things that he were doing. But he was just dynamic on the field. But Big Ben's transgressions off the field definitely shaped his future, especially in that motorcycle accident. A lot of people say he lost years off his career because of that injury, but I think it's just because he just really didn't take care of himself physically. He never looked, in shape when he played football, but as a quarterback, you don't move as much as the other skill positions. So, but Big Ben looked like he never was prepared and he was always unprofessional. He called out teammates after games, and that what caused a lot of dissension with him and Antonio Brown, and people thought it was Antonio Brown until Antonio Brown left, and then everybody's starting to see. The only thing I blame Mike Tomlin for is keeping Big Ben around a couple of years more than he should have. They should let him go probably 3 years before he actually left. That playoff game against the Jacksonville when he threw all those interceptions, but he threw a lot of yards. That was pretty much the end at that point. But he stayed around for another couple of years because he didn't want another, rookie quarterback to take his spot, and it put them in a very, very bad spot now because they can't really find a quarterback. They bounced around between Justin Fields and Kenny Pickett and a bunch of other quarterbacks, so they never could get settled with a staple quarterback, which that franchise really needs, especially as a cornerstone franchise in the NFL. It definitely needs that. But Big Ben in his career was never top five, in my opinion, because you had Tom Brady, you had Peyton Manning, you also had people like Philip Rivers, you had Aaron Rodgers, and then, Big Ben was probably fighting for fifth with Eli because Eli won the same amount of rings, and he was never MVP, but neither was Big Ben was ever MVP. So they were kind of competing at the end. They were kind of mediocre quarterbacks that if they can get to the playoffs, sometimes they can make a little magic happen. But nobody ever considered them the top four quarterbacks in their era. Well, actually, I got to move them to six because Drew Brees is in that mix. So it'll be Philip Rivers, then Drew Brees. Well, Drew Brees, then Philip Rivers, then Big Ben have to go for the sixth spot with Eli because, like I said, Big Ben's career was very overrated to me. I talk about this a lot before because he never took the sport serious. He never took his conditioning serious, and he never took his teammates serious because he thought he was bigger than what he was. Um, he always talked like he was a top five quarterback. He was nowhere near the top five. Like I said, he would be fighting somewhere between that 6 to 10 spot, depending on how you see it. But he definitely wasn't in that top five spot. So Joey Porter Sr. was definitely was on the spot for criticizing Big Ben as not only as a teammate but as a person because, like I said, he just seemed horrible. He looked like he was always disinterested in the game, so it just seemed apropos that somebody would finally call him out for this because, like I said, he didn't garner, um, he didn't deserve the attention that he definitely garnered because he was mediocre at best as a quarterback. He threw a lot of yards to a lot of great receivers who got open, and any quarterback in the league could have made those passes. It's not like he was making difficult ones. These guys were pretty much wide open. Um, so tell me what your thoughts about Joey Porter Senior's comments about Big Ben. Until next time, I'll see you next time.